Where do you stand on it? The breaking news this morning, Chris Licht is out.
It's on some level shocking to me, although maybe it shouldn't be. The last time I was on here talking with you about a big media story, it was April 24th, and Tucker Carlson getting the axe on a Monday morning in a shocking way. That was really shocking. This one, I think the writing's been on the wall in a lot of ways about this. I think that we've seen the leaks against Chris Licht from inside that newsroom, from, as far as we can understand, very prominent people, from anchors and behind the scenes executives. That's been going on for close to the entirety of his time at the network. So almost a year that this has been going on, leaking to people like Dylan Byers and the New York Times and elsewhere. More recently, obviously, in the wake of this, really, I think the straw that broke the camel's back Atlantic story, it's been getting louder. And so perhaps it was inevitable, and certainly felt that way to a lot of people that I talked to after the Atlantic piece published. It was just a matter of when, not if, he was going to be out at some point. So it was fast, and that was a little bit shocking on my end. But I will say this: look, I know Chris Licht. I've known him for a long time. We've had our ups and downs. I've written about in Fourth Watch how he once blocked me on Twitter because he didn't like something I said. We've gotten past that. And like you, I think that the mission that Chris talked about in that Atlantic piece and has a little bit publicly, that was a mission that I support. And I think that is the right move for CNN. It's frankly the only move for CNN. And we can get into why that I believe that establishing CNN as a trustworthy source of objective news is much more important than the day-to-day ratings that happen on that network. Even from a business perspective, from what happens with cable providers, they need to make themselves boring old CNN that people just trust again. That is truly a strong mission, not just for CNN, the business, but I think for America. I don't know, not to be too, big picture about it, but I do think that we need strong news like CNN used to be, at least what they strive to be. And they just completely went away from that. So I'm disappointed in that. But the only solace I would say that I feel right now is also that David Zaslav's still there. John Malone, who I know people have talked about, he's still there. Discovery is running the show, and they want that CNN still, even if it's not with Chris Licht.
Right. So my take, it seems to be the same as yours, which is the mission is a good one. The leader they chose turned out not to be. He was not the right man for the job. I think his ego really ruined his chances. He lasted 13 months. And if you read that Atlantic piece, it makes clear it was his ego, as Mark Eiglarsh would say, was not his amigo. That it was just, he was too much about himself. He didn't build relationships. He didn't reach out to the staff enough. You can't just go in there all swagger and say, there's a new boss in town. I'm changing everything. You guys sucked before I got here, and now do it my way. I mean, there does need to be some amount of finesse. And he apparently didn't get that, and also just wasn't a natural born leader. Few are, to be honest, few are. You don't have a lot of Jocko Willinks running around out there in the media landscape. But he was about as far away from it as he could be. And so that combination wound up being toxic and made him fail in the execution of the Malone-Zaslav mission, which is a good one.
Right. Yeah, no, it certainly seems that way. And I think one of the biggest things that stood out to me in that Atlantic piece was that if you're an average CNN staffer, let's put aside people like the Jake Tappers of the world or Oliver Darcy, the people that like Oliver Darcy, celebrating today, the people that have been firing missiles at Licht's direction for a long time from inside the building. But if you're just the average staffer, you probably learned a lot about what Chris Licht thinks about the old network, about what his mission is, what he wants it for the future, how he sees it evolving in that Atlantic piece. And perhaps you didn't necessarily even fully know that when the last year has been going on. Now, maybe you've gotten hints of it here and there. Obviously, there's the big Trump town hall, which I think is perhaps the precursor to this, not the actual town hall itself, but the massive fallout, both internal and external, to that town hall, I think was maybe step one towards the beginning of the end in some ways. So you're learning a lot about that, and I think that is a problem. It's the ego that you saw in it, like you talk about the having a reporter follow along on your morning sessions of working out and talking about being a machine. I mean, like you talked about yesterday. I mean, that's not what you want from a leader. You don't want that to be what your legacy is going to be. But also, you want to make sure that everyone, maybe they're not going to be on board with that mission. And those people, like you said, should be shown the door still today. But you want to make sure you're communicating that to the average person that's working at the network and make them buy into this new mission.
That's so much of the problem. But the thing that we're, people saying, oh, this is because of the Trump town hall. The left is going with a totally different narrative right now on Twitter. They're saying, oh, I mean, I'll just give you one example. John Cooper, former Dem finance guy, tweets out, breaking, Chris Licht is leaving CNN after doing horrible damage to the network's reputation. That's not what happened. That's not
No.
why he's being pushed out. He didn't have the support of the staff for all the reasons outlined thus far on this show and in the Atlantic piece and so on. And then, yes, there's a core group within CNN who didn't believe in the mission, but he did not ruin CNN. He did not do horrible damage to the network's reputation. Jeff Zucker is the one who ruined CNN, Steve.
Yeah. Look, and that is, I think, what's going to be missing in all this, and also why I think all these people who are, dancing on the grave of Chris Licht today are going to be sorely disappointed when whoever that next leader is brought on from Warner Brothers Discovery, that mission's not going away. So it's going to be a different person that's going to be executing that. But I don't think they're going to like where it's going if they think that's the takeaway from this. No, I look, there's a column that was published yesterday, which kind of prescient today, but Perry Bacon in the Washington Post, just a shockingly terrible column called CNN's Chris Licht showed the problem with anti-woke centrism. and what he has described as anti-woke centrism is that he's saying that Chris Licht embodies an increasingly prominent American media and politics among powerful white men who live on the coast, don't identify as Republicans or conservatives, but have this anti-woke mentality that, as he concludes this piece, I mean, you've got to go and read this piece. This is so bad.
I did read it.
I can't tell
horrifying.
if the anti-woke don't understand what's actually happening in America or if they actively oppose a more equitable country. This is the takeaway from this person. And I have to say this has been shared widely among the people that don't like the Chris Licht vision of CNN. And I think it's so wrong. One of the biggest things that the Brian Stelter of the world didn't like in that Atlantic piece was Chris criticizing CNN's COVID coverage. And he criticized them. It wasn't in the Atlantic piece, but Semaphore then later published it, that he was criticizing it with a background to it. They did a poll of why are people losing trust in CNN. Number one was liberal bias. Number two was Chris Cuomo. Number three was the way they covered COVID, the hysterical, overly dramatic way that they covered COVID. So he's absolutely right about that. The people that love the resistance TV of Jeff Zucker are completely wrong about what the average person in America thinks of CNN and would like from a CNN. And that's just the loud Twitter crowd that's making a lot of noise here.
He's got to do an Elon Musk. Elon Musk got rid of 80% of the Twitter staff. And yes, they had a glitch when they launched with Ron DeSantis because of volume. But Twitter's been working just fine other than that. And he's making it. I mean, it's lost a lot of profit given all the problems. But the point is, you can't create a new mission for a social media company or another media company with the same staff that's committed to a very different mission. How are you going to get Don Lemons fired, right? What about all the staffers who laughed just as hard behind the scenes in that sneering video that you found, Steve, that we've shown many times with Rick Wilson and Wajahat Ali, right? Laughing about how the Trump viewers are so stupid. Yeah, with like their maps and they're like, how those staffers are all presumably still there. So you cannot, like, cleaning house is that firing Don, firing Stelter, firing Cuomo, that's not cleaning house. And the viewers know it and can feel it.
Yeah, it's very hard. Right now, the revamped, what people see on air too, are essentially the same people. You mentioned all these people, Breonna Keeler. I mean, she's just now, I believe she's on it from 9 to noon or from 1 to 4. She's in one of these news slots. It's a different version of her. Jim Acosta is now on the weekends and he's doing maybe a slightly reduced version of it. Everyone remembers. No one's stupid.
Right.
Everyone knows what these people were only a couple years ago and what they were empowered to do a couple years ago. It's very hard putting that genie back in the bottle and trying to just run it back with the same staff. And so I think that's another just total misconception. And I completely agree with you. People behind the scenes too, if you're not on board with this idea of getting back to the news version of CNN, and there are people inside who I think were a little bit leery of the way CNN drifted during those Trump years and like the direction that it's going back. Those people can stay. There's some of those, but the rest, you got to go. And another big storyline that's being made these days, or these past few days, really, is the ratings. That, the ratings are so terrible. I mean, before Chris Licht took over, there's a Forbes report from February of 2022, right before Chris took over in that last year. CNN had lost 70% from the previous year in that time. This was before Chris took over. The demo at that time was 126,000, the demo primetime number there.
Horrible.
Yeah, this February, 122,000. So, okay, it's negligible. I mean, the ratings were terrible before Chris Licht got in there. And I think it's really important to note that what matters to the bosses, they say, David Zaslav says, it doesn't matter about the ratings right now. Sure, eventually, maybe it will. What matters is getting that brand respectability back. So when you go and negotiate your next contract with the Comcasts of the world or the DirecTVs of the world, you can say people trust us. That's what they lost. And these 126 versus 122, it's all bad. It's not getting better, sure, but that's not what matters most. What matters is getting the brand back right.
It's going to take years if it's possible at all. I agree it's worth a try, but you've got it, like in the same way the new owners came in and said, CNN Plus has got to go. This is a disaster in the making. We're not putting more money into this nightmare. Get rid of it. Nobody wants to watch John Lemon in front of a talk show audience or Anderson Cooper cook or whatever he was doing. And they got rid of it. They need to do the same thing with CNN proper. They just do. And if you look at CNN Digital, which is really their money-making arm, it's as biased as it ever was. Somebody needs to put the hand on the tiller there too, because half the stuff we make fun of on shows like this come from CNN.com. So it's not just the on-air talent. If you really want to change CNN back to the way it used to be, you've got to say to the staff, either you get on board with the new mission or you get out or we'll kick you out. That's the way it's going to be. It's a business, not a daycare.
Yeah. And I mean, we've talked about this too, Megyn. Like, it's going to be harder to do that. It was always going to be harder to do that if you're Chris Licht with the 800-pound gorilla in the room, right? Donald Trump running for office again makes this that much more challenging because with every indictment, with every time that Donald Trump brings up January 6th, okay, well, now we've got our opportunity to go through, run the greatest hits of the quote unquote big lie. And it's hard to change those muscles or the muscle memory or what was requested of the staff in the old days. It's hard enough to do that if Donald Trump's not involved, but he is involved. He's going to be very, very involved over these next 18 months. And you need a very steady hand and you need buy-in. You need the full buy-in of the staff if you're not going to just make the same resistance TV mistakes that you made over these last 7 years when Donald Trump was running for office and then when he was in the White House. So it's going to be a challenge no matter who's there. But if those people are not on board with, we're going to do Donald Trump differently, let's just start there. You're not going to fix anything.
No, they're activists, as I said, and it's going to be very tough to get them to turn in any event. They're programmed. It's like you've been programmed to hate him, to absolutely loathe him, to think he's a Hitler-esque character. How are you going to cover him fairly? And so they should be given the chance. Either you try and you succeed, or get out. Get out and we'll give you a soft landing with a package and a nice recommendation. But they ought to think about it long and hard because media jobs are hard to come by. They really are. Health insurance, it's fun to work in news. A lot of people want to do it. You want to walk away from your CNN job because they want to become more fair, because they want to go back to being less biased. Get out. You should just get out. Go work for a hard partisan. Go work for Rachel Maddow. Don't pretend you're in the straight news business because you're not. Maybe you've heard me talk about Bonner Private Wine Partnership. Their rare Malbecs are incredible. If you enjoy a glass of wine, try these wines from the extreme altitudes of Argentina. The flavor is unlike any other. Blackberry, leather, smoke, little dark cherry. And these wines are nearly impossible to get on your own. The producers deep in the Andes Mountains make limited quantities. The best part? They have cut out the middleman. You will not deal with a big markup. Today, I've got a great offer for you. If you visit bonnerprivatewines.com/MKS, that's BONNER, privatewines.com/MKS, you will not only get the wine for over 50% off, plus free shipping, you'll also get a bonus bottle, a small batch limited production wine from their exclusive wine cellar. That's 4 bottles for the price of 3. It's a deal that's hard to turn down if you are a wine lover like I am. Just visit Bonner, BONNER, privatewines.com/MKS to claim your bonus bottle and become a part of America's most unique wine club. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.